Eddie Hearn gave a very, very entertaining interview, as always, to IFL TV today. And it was funny, actually, because he was at a Floridian airport and he managed to hijack himself this VIP room. He snuck in there because it was quiet and he wasn't allowed to be there. And the lady came and knocked on the door and she said, "Excuse me, this is reserved, this room. You're going to have to leave." And he says, "Oh, please, I'm on a really important media call. Can I just have a little bit longer?" And she says, "How long are you going to be?" He says, "I'd like to say 5 minutes, but it'll probably be 10. The interview goes on for 40 minutes. And she's knocking on a few occasions. It's funny. It's the sort of thing whereby a lot of people love Eddie Hearn for it, that sort of charm that he's got, and people hate him for it too because they see him as a blagger. So it depends on where you stand on it. But if you look beyond all that and you look at the content of what he was saying, there's some really interesting points in this interview. And one of the things that he points out too, which is interesting, and he makes a great point, he explains that for Amir Khan to have failed this test 14 months ago, it makes it unacceptable to the point whereby people are demanding that Conor Benn goes through a process with the British board before being allowed to fight again. So his argument is, are we going to have to wait another 14 months to get a resolution here? He explains that it is not fit for purpose as a testing process is just not acceptable. When Conor Benn has been cleared as well by the WBC. Now, you and I know the whole he's been cleared by the WBC doesn't really stand up to scrutiny for us. It's not an acceptable resolution for the majority of us. But he is right in the sense that imagine Conor Benn, just for argument's sake, was to have found to have been innocent. It's easy to say, yeah, let's go through the process, and you expect him to sit on the sidelines for a year and a half. That's the prime of his career. You see, one of the things that Eddie Hearn is definitely correct about is that the type of scrutiny he's under is different to the sort of scrutiny that other promoters get put under. It's just a fact. And when they're put under the same sort of scrutiny and when they're questioned and they're interviewed, it's not with the same animosity, you could say. It's not with the same aggressive nature. And perhaps that has to do with the fact that Eddie Hearn has always been willing to speak to people that are interviewing. He doesn't cut them off. He doesn't get angry with them and refuse them access or interviews or stuff like that. Something that a lot of boxing journalists complain about when it comes to other promoters. Then it creates an imbalance in the way he's being approached. And I do agree there with Eddie Hearn. Now, I'm not saying he should be let off the hook. What I'm saying is that the other promoters should be addressed in an equally aggressive manner, right? And the reason that this is relevant is because if you look at, for instance, at the sort of job Simon Jordan's been doing, which by and large I think has been terrific for a guy who is not really au fait with the sport of boxing as much as he is with football, for instance. He's learning on the ropes quite quickly. He's challenging the promoters with some good questions. But the way in which he challenges Eddie Hearn seems to be a lot more aggressive. Maybe there's a clash of egos thing going on there, and that's why he sees it as more of a personal battle compared to when he's dealing, say, with Frank. But regardless of that, when you're talking about how he's analysed the Amir Khan situation, it's almost unfair, in my opinion, in comparison to how he's analysed the Conor Benn situation. And I do realise there are differences between the two cases, there's no doubt about that. And on the last video, I explained why there were some differences and why the Amir Khan situation wasn't quite as bad if it was as it was being reported on. However, having said that, the fact of the matter is Simon Jordan came out and said, well done to Amir Khan for fronting up to the press. He didn't run and hide. He went through the analysis of the British Board of Boxing Control and he's accepted his 2-year ban like a man. They don't feel as though he actually cheated, but due to strict liability, he had to accept his 2-year ban and he's been willing to do that. Well done to Amir Khan. Here's the thing though, Simon. If Amir Khan was at the same stage of his career that Conor Benn is at in the prime years of his career, not when he's decided to retire and he no longer wants a part of this, well then things might be very different. He might not be acting in that same way, right, Simon? Conor Benn has a lot more to lose than Amir Khan from going through the process. And that's not to say he shouldn't go through the process, but the situation in terms of willingness to engage is very, very different. I mean, to use an analogy, imagine a friend of yours recommended a restaurant to you. So you go there, you sit down with the missus, you order a nice meal. It tastes horrendous. The service is terrible. You look down, you see a rat scurrying out the kitchen, running across the floor. You ring up your friend, you say, I can't believe you recommended me this place. It's a pigsty. I'm never eating here again. Grab your stuff, babe. We're getting out of here. The owner hears you and he says, I can't believe you just said that about my restaurant. Get out of here. You're banned. You're never allowed to come back again. Never allowed to come back again? Bro, I won't eat here again if you paid me. So that banning from the restaurant is completely irrelevant. In the same way that if I have absolutely no intention of ever fighting again and you're telling me you're banned, well, okay then. It's a very different situation though when you're Conor Benn in the prime years of your life. And if he feels, and again, I'm not saying he's innocent, I'm not saying he's justified to feel this way, but if he feels that he's not going to get a fair trial, if he feels that he's genuinely innocent and they have they're trying to stitch him up with an unfair approach to make an example of him. Or alternatively, even if he feels as though he could get a fair trial, but it's going to take 14 months to prove his innocence, 14 months of being out of action in the prime of his career, then of course he's going to be a lot more reluctant to engage Simon Jordan. You have to be honest enough to be able to put these things out there. In an ideal world, he would not be allowed to fight until he faces the board. 100% I agree with that. But that means the shortening of a hearing. You can't be waiting 14 months to get a resolution, and in the meantime a boxer can't fight. That's just not realistic, and it's not fair. You're talking about killing careers. And in addition to that, one of the things that Simon Jordan has been saying, which does seem to have merit, is when he's been calling him the British Board of No Control. Because when you're talking about that sort of delay, 14 months between a failed test and getting a resolution, and the fighter's not been suspended in the meantime, and you cannot suspend him unless you have that hearing and find him guilty, right? But in that meantime, it causes another problem. Because as he explains in this interview, Amir Khan was actually in negotiations with Eddie Hearn to make a fight against Manny Pacquiao. This was 6 months ago. Yes, he's retired, but if an opportunity was to arise in the same bracket as a Manny Pacquiao, where you've got two guys that have retired and there could be a lot of money to be made, Khan was clearly open to that idea. In other words, you could have had a fighter fighting on, and he would have been in a position where he would have had an illegal substance in his body. So how can it take 14 months? It's ridiculous. But additionally to that, there's another point that we have to consider here. Eddie Hearn also says, look, I do understand the comments of people like Dominic Ingle, who have said that they don't believe that Amir Khan cheated, that it doesn't really make sense. Eddie Hearn explains that typically speaking, historically speaking, when fighters are caught cheating, and there's no doubt that they've been cheating, it's very, very rare for a fighter to fail a test that he took on the day of the fight. Because taking an illegal substance so close to a fight, an illegal substance of that nature, okay, there are other things you can take like caffeine pills which would help on the day, but of that nature, it wouldn't offer any benefit. And Dominic Ingle gave an interview with Boxing King Media where he goes quite deep into this, and he makes some great points. This drug has a 24-hour half-life, which means after 24 hours it's half as strong in your body. After 48 hours, really, it should have cycled out of your body. Unless he was very lucky with the timing, and they were never ever testing him within 48 hours of taking something dodgy. Unless that was the case on numerous occasions, he passed a bunch of tests. Why on earth would he then take something within 2 days of a fight that would not benefit him? It doesn't make any sense. So Dominic Ingle argues what probably happened is that he had some sort of energy drink or something like that. And bear in mind, Dominic Ingle is the trainer of Kell Brook, right, who fought Amir Khan. He had some sort of energy drink or something akin to that he hadn't previously had. And because you have a lot of laboratories in China and stuff like that, they will often use the same laboratories to process a whole bunch of different elements, chemicals, a lot of different products, and you can be left with residue. And this can matter when you consider that the levels left in Amir Khan's system is something like the equivalent of a grain of salt in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. You're talking about the most minute of residues. Now, the counter-argument to that is that, well, yeah, because if there's a cycling process or someone's used a masking agent or whatever, it will show tiny residues and small trace amounts. But that still doesn't address the fact that why would he be taking it so close to an event? Perhaps somebody out there who's a chemist may turn to us and say, actually, microdosing of that, an anabolic agent, can help us close to the fight as that. But listen, Dominic Ingle is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these things, and he's one of the best people to check out in interviews when it comes to PEDs, because he's open about the way he speaks, and he's very clear with the detail that he provides as well. So he doesn't feel that Amir Khan cheated. Having said all of that, the board still banned him for 2 years based on strict liability. In other words, you are directly responsible for what goes into your body. The truth is, a 2-year ban is not fair when they admit they don't think you cheated. It doesn't make sense that you've cheated. We don't think you've cheated, but you get a 2-year ban. I mean, you've got fighters who, what can they really do? They'll look at the banned list. They'll look at a product. They'll read the ingredients of that product. They might even go as far as to send an email. And when they send that email, it comes back, they're told, nope, our laboratories are 100% clean. We use the strictest and most stringent cleaning processes. We believe in our product. You're fine to take it. You take it. And it's been contaminated with something. You then pop positive. What really could you have done differently to stop that occurring? So when you think that someone's been banned for 2 years for something they may be innocent for, it is unfair. Let me give you an analogy. I want you to imagine that you're a parent and you are very, very in tune with health and nutrition, and you've decided, I'm only going to feed my family organic produce. You go to your local organic farm, you speak to them, they tell you, we use the strictest possible methods here, everything's organic, free of fertilizers, no genetically modified produce, because health is a priority to what we create here as a product. You even contact the Organic Soil Association and they confirm, yes, we have checked the products, we have checked their processes, and everything is on board and we are certified. Your wife is delighted with you. She's even more obsessed with this idea of organic produce than you are. All of a sudden though, a number of months later, your kid gets ill, you decide you're going to go for a full range of blood tests, and within those blood tests, you also find that there's some pesticides in your child's blood. Now that's not the reason he's ill, but your wife all of a sudden wants an explanation. I thought you've been buying organic produce. And you tell her, I have, I promise you. And she says, well, this doesn't make sense. You haven't bought organic produce. I reckon you've been going and buying regular fruit, giving it a little wash under the tap, telling us it's organic produce. Then you've been popping down to Ladbrokes, betting on Canelo Alvarez to school Dimitri Bivol instead of listening to Chris Andre's breakdown, and then you wouldn't have lost that money. And now you're out of pocket. And she won't believe you. Well, in reality, you did go and do everything you could have possibly done. But what happened was, there's a farm half a mile down the road, and they do use fertilizers, and on a very windy day it carried some fertilizers over onto your farm. And that particular farm that you bought from, there was some residue on those apples that your kid ate, and now your kid has fertilizer residue in his blood. You did nothing wrong. There was nothing more you could have done. What else could you have done? You checked the produce, you went to the farm, you contacted the Organic Soil Association, and it's still in your system. So your wife gets upset and she says to you, I don't believe you. Off you pop to the spare bedroom. You're not getting any loving for the next month. You take the magazines with you, do what you got to do, but you're not getting any access to me. Well, in that sort of situation, you've been mugged off. That's not your fault. Now you're going to sit there all frustrated. You did everything you could have possibly done. Well, by the same token, let's just say for argument's sake, Amir Khan, Conor, Benn, any fighter does everything they possibly can to avoid contamination. It may very well just be that they're very unlucky, and therefore if there's 2-year bans just automatically given due to strict liability, it is unfair and it can potentially ruin careers. However, there is a flip side to that coin, and that is that whether you meant to ingest it or not, if you have a substance in your body, you can benefit from it. And you can benefit from it for months, or in some cases years, after you discontinue that particular product. So if you are fighting another fighter who is clean, you still have an advantage. It's a very difficult subject to broach, and most channels, most analysts, most journalists are pretending as though this is a very black and white thing. The reality is there are areas that are very grey, and it is a difficult situation. They are muddy waters to have to find your way through. Now, we can be critical of the conduct of promoters, of fighters, of the boards. That's a fact, that's sure. But there are going to be cases, and I've done a lot of videos, remember, where I've spoken about how rife PED use is in boxing. A lot more rife than people realise. But there are going to also be cases where people are testing positive and they're genuinely innocent. And banning them for 2 years, maybe it's a necessary evil, or maybe you see it as something that really is unfair. Maybe they need to tailor-make a process where if they think someone's innocent and they're fair with it, like Amir Khan's situation, where you look at a particular substance and you speak to chemists, you have like a tribunal of pharmacists, and you consider how long an athlete would typically take before the benefits of that wane off. Maybe that's how long someone needs to be banned for. But then what if that goes beyond 2 years? Do you ruin a career completely? It's a very, very complex situation, and people don't want to accept that. They want to see this as black and white. Let me know what you think about that. Strict liability, is it fair or not? What is just in terms of punishment? And is the British Board of Boxing Control and the testing processes fit for purpose? A lot of people mug off UKAD, by the way, but talking of Dominic Ingle, he's actually spoken about the fact that in the United States, in his experience with VADA, it seems as though it's easier to cheat, because he says that with UKAD, you've got someone right on top of you when you're urinating in a pot. Whereas he's seen situations in the US where fighters go off without a chaperone. And bear in mind, Mike Tyson has admitted in the past that he used a prosthetic Johnson filled with somebody else's urine because he was smoking marijuana in order to bypass a drugs test. So there's precedent for people bypassing it out in the United States too. So what is the answer here? Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.